All right, let's welcome everybody out today to episode 345 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris.
And my name's Chrissy.
What a week this has been, Chrissy.
It really has been, but I'm so excited.
Can you believe that we're finally going to be back residing in downtown Salt Lake City? I guess a lot of listeners really had no idea where we live now, and I'm not going to tell everybody where we live. Let's just say that we live on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, and it's going to be great to be back in the heart of downtown, right where the action is. Like you said, Chrissy, you're going to ride those scooters around all the time.
Oh, I'm going to be riding those scooters everywhere downtown. And speaking of downtown, today we're recording at Mountain West Hard Cider. They're located at 425 North, 400 West. It's just north of the Gateway, and you need to stop by sometime and grab yourself a hard cider, which I have right now.
And if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you're like, what is this podcast even about? It has the word Salt Lake City in the title. What is it about? Well, this podcast is all about showcasing awesome people here in Salt Lake City. We get to talk to musicians, artists, business owners, restaurant owners, food truck owners, bartenders, really anyone that might have a cool story.
Like today on the podcast, we get a chance to sit down and chat with Joel Goodwillie from Mountain West Hard Cider. We get to find out Joel's story on how he got into the winemaking industry and how he eventually moved here to Utah and teamed up with Mountain West Hard Cider. And we get to find out what a typical day looks like for him. And we even get to find out what Joel loves about living in Utah.
Hey guys, but before we jump into this interview, let's give some quick love to our sponsors. We got some great sponsors for this episode. We have the Salt Lake Barber Company, where I go to get a haircut. We have Five Wives Vodka that we drink late at night. And then Market Source Real Estate, when we're looking to buy a house here in Salt Lake City. So we're going to be telling you more about them a little bit later on in the podcast.
And you know what? It is still farmers market season. This is probably my favorite time of year here in Salt Lake City. And if you've never had a chance to visit the downtown farmers market, you need to do yourself a favor and go check it out. It's happening every Saturday until October 20th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the historic Pioneer Park right downtown. There's tons of local artisans that are making some amazing things and local farmers selling some of the best produce you will ever taste.
All right, let's get into that conversation that we had with Joel Goodwillie when we sat down with him and he shared his story. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy. What did your childhood smell like?
My childhood smelled like middle-class suburban Seattle. Little league fields and home at 5 o'clock with my siblings and my parents.
I think that's the most idealistic childhood smell we've ever had on the podcast.
And everybody's is so different. Now, do you miss Seattle at all?
It's one of my favorite cities in the world, but to live there now with the traffic, the prices, the homeless population, it's a beautiful city.
When's the last time you've been up there?
Last holiday season, I guess.
So like a year ago.
Oh, you know what? I go to Portland a lot because my kids still live there, and the winery I owned was just outside of Portland, about an hour in the Columbia River Gorge near Hood River, Oregon.
So you owned a winery?
Yeah.
Like you started it from the ground up or what? I mean,
I've done it a few times.
Did you have vineyards like grapes?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know this about you, Joel.
Oh yeah. My background is in winery management and winemaking.
What got you into that?
Unemployment.
So
that sounds about right.
No, I got out of college and I went to work for the world's largest winery, which is the Gallo Winery. And, after a few years of in the marketing and sales management, I kind of looked at this bustling industry of smaller wineries in Oregon and Washington. And I thought, boy, if I just applied what I've learned from Gallo to one of these small wineries. So then I got tired of the corporate life. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've ever been awake at midnight on a Sunday night, almost crying because you have to go back to work the next day, that was me. So I said, screw this. I'm going to get old too fast. And,
that's the definition of burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like 23 or 24.
And that's what wine's for.
Yeah. And so I found a winery that was for sale, and I thought I could take over that winery and manage it like Gallo manages themselves and build it up. And that's what I did. And I had a partner and built it up to one of the largest wineries in Oregon State. And
what was the name of the winery?
Back then it was called Callahan Ridge.
Good wine, I'm
Yeah, it was
assuming.
inexpensive. You know, we weren't going high end, but our whole deal was Merlot, Zinfandel, Cabernet, Chardonnay, all under $10. And so, you know, I like that formula.
Yeah.
And then I was married at the time. My wife and I were involved with that. And we had partners, and someone famous once said, if you don't have a partner, don't get one. If you have a partner, buy them out or let them buy it. You just don't have a partner. But anyway, we were ready to move on our own. The partnership was tough. And so we started a winery, like I say, in the Hood River, Oregon area, except we were in Washington State. Our vineyard looked down at Hood River, Oregon from the Washington side, and it was called Wind River Cellars. And we did more higher end Zinfandel, Syrah, Tempranillo, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, and Port.
Wow.
So how many years did you say? How many years you were doing the winery?
25 total. Yeah.
And
then I've been here 3.
To Mountain West Hard Cider.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about this, the transition from making wine to hard cider.
Well, you know what's funny? They're identical, basically. But when I had the winery, I also started a hard cider company.
Okay.
It was called Bad Seed Cider, and I was about 20 years too early because right now hard cider is going nuts. It's one of the fastest growing adult beverages, on the market. 20 years ago, people were like, hard cider,
Was it just kind of a joke?
And that's how it was for me, because I couldn't handle beer when I first started drinking alcohol, and I was introduced to hard cider, but you couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, there's only a few.
Why do you think that was? What made hard cider take off, you think?
Good question.
Do you think it's a gluten-free craze?
I think that could be it.
Yeah,
also, look at it was just the new trend. Like somebody went, let's do something new.
It might be the gluten-free thing.
Could be. And
why are
everybody wants
micro
to try something
distilleries
new
all of
and
a sudden
different.
taking off? And why are kombucha is getting popular?
Good point.
Life is weird. We take weird twists and turns. So how did you mentioned off the recording, or the first time recording, how you met through like a Tinder type app?
Well, I call it Tinder for winemakers. But
how do I get on that app? Is what I want to know.
After 20 years of running my own winery, and my kids were getting older, and it was clear that they weren't going to take over the winery, and I was looking for something new. But yeah, I call it the Tinder app for winemakers and parties that are looking for winemakers. I saw something in Salt Lake City, and what do you call it? Swipe right? Or is it left?
I think so.
I don't know.
Is it right?
It's been a few years since I've been on Tinder.
Yeah. So this couple, Jen and Jeff Carlton, were looking to start a hard cider company, and I thought Salt Lake City, and I kind of emailed them, and they flew me out here. And it's the funniest thing. I think it was the weekend of. There was so much going on. There's Comic-Con was going on, and they put me in a hotel downtown, and I was thinking, all right, and I'd never been to Salt Lake before. And I was like, I'll take a little weekend trip and check it out.
Free vacation.
Yeah. And I have to hand it to Jeff and Jen, who are absolutely the nicest people you could imagine. But they went around to every person in Salt Lake and said, hey, could you, be on your best behavior? The weather was incredible. There was Comic-Con was going on. There was a Utes football game going on. The state fair was going on.
They purposely flew you out on like the most active weekend or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I honestly, at the end of the weekend, was going home thinking, I want to move to Salt Lake City.
You're like, this is an amazing, but it was your first time ever visiting. Yeah. But you were blown away by it. And are you still blown away by it?
I like it a lot.
Not on a Sunday though, man. Sunday downtown.
I love Sundays here. There's no traffic.
You know what? It's so peaceful. It's so peaceful downtown.
Here's a question. Why is everybody afraid of traffic? I hear that all the time. Oh, traffic's so bad.
You just don't want to get stuck in your car that long.
Who cares? You got to put a podcast on.
That's
it
a
that
good
big
point.
of a deal? Okay, Joel, do you realize how upset I get when you only have to, well, not you, but when I only drive 10 minutes, you can't even get into a podcast.
Okay, that's true. I love traffic on my way home from work because I can finish a podcast.
Exactly.
I put my earbuds in when I leave the house into a podcast, and they stay in all day long.
Oh, that's so nice.
I think my car has a radio, but I don't use it.
So let's Mountain West Hard Cider. What do you do here? I mean, everything or what?
Yeah, I'm in charge of production. I produce all the cider. I'm a a mechanic, a repairman, a cider maker, a
jack
winemaker.
of all trades.
Yeah, and you have to, and that comes from running a winery where I was marketing, I was sales, I was vineyard manager, I was winemaker, I was bookkeeper, and here Jeff and Jan are so their plan is so well thought out. They have a sales manager, they have a marketing manager, they have, it's really taken me 3 years to just sit back and go, oh.
Do you ever sense kind of a hat loss problem? Like you feel like you should be doing more, or you want to jump in and do other jobs that someone else is already doing?
No, it's honestly taken me, like I say, a few years to go, oh, somebody else can do that. Somebody else is better than that, or better at that than me, and they're here to do that. And I can just focus on production.
So go through a typical day. What does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day, I usually roll in between 8 and 9. And, producing a batch of cider, I guess it might be similar to beer. It's typically about a 21 to 25 day cycle from the juice comes in to when it's bottled. So just take you through the process. The juice will come in. I put it into a tank, add yeast, and let the juice rot, as we say. That's basically what's going on. So it converts to alcohol, and then it goes through a 2-week filtering period where it's clarified. Then it goes into a conditioning tank where it's dosed with CO2 and bottled. So like I say, that, and there's different cycles throughout that process, from filtering to racking to bottling. And I usually have about 3 or 4 batches going at all times. So it's a pretty full workload.
And are you here pretty late, or you're pretty much out of here 6 or 7 at night? You're not working until midnight every night.
No, but when I do that, and it's not that often, it's really nice because I can crank music. And during the day when I'm working, I have to be a little more respectful of customers that come in the tasting room, thus the earbuds and podcasts.
Right.
So for people listening, you can actually stop by here and purchase.
Yeah, we have a tasting room that's open 11 to 7 every day except Sunday. We're closed.
And it's cool, man. It's like to come here, check it out, kind of taste some of the beverages. You can actually see the facilities.
Yeah.
What's the address here? We can mention it again at the end.
We are at 425 North 400 West.
Just north of the Gateway, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not far from the Gateway.
I walk down there for lunch quite a bit, so it's real close. I would say we're real close to West High School. And it's great because that's our future demographic, for
future demographic.
Okay, how you did a winery outside of Utah, dealing with alcohol inside Utah, is that been harder for you, or what are the differences that you find?
The differences.
That's a hard question. I guess I laid it out hard.
No, I know what you're asking. There's just laws that in Utah. I would just like to see why that's a law. Like, say what do you call the curtain? The Zion curtain.
The Zion curtain.
Which has been removed a few months ago. But will you show me the studies that say that reduces teen drinking or whatever? Show me the studies.
Yeah.
Because the people that make the laws, they're not dumb people. So they must have data that supports
they're
these
definitely,
laws.
I mean, from what I understand, they're people who don't drink. So I don't think they really understand the impact it would have.
You know what, Chrissy, is those people, when they wake up in the morning, that's the best they're going to feel all day long.
Don't you feel bad for them? I feel kind of bad for them.
I know.
Poor guys.
But, coming from the wine industry, we're all about moderation. And cider is that way too. The wine industry is have a bottle of wine with dinner.
Right.
And
you're not an evil person.
Yeah.
I mean, some people look at if you have a bottle of wine or a beer in the fridge and they're like, you might as well be the devil.
Yeah. Well, in the DABC, they need to be here. We need that organization, but they should be down at the mini marts on State Street or wherever. No offense, State Street, but they should be.
We lost all our State Street listeners.
They should be going after the underage kids that are trying to buy beer at those stores,
right?
But people that come in here want to just grab a few bottles for their dinner party or whatever. They're not going to go sit under the bridge and get tanked.
Exactly. Kind of have better things to do.
Some Ruby, right?
Yeah.
Now. What was I going to ask? Oh, you can't get your hard cider like at Smith's or any of the grocery
No, and that's
store?
another silly thing is even if we came up with a 3% cider, because it's made from fruit, they refer to it as wine.
Oh,
And
for real?
so Smith's grocery stores can't sell wine in Utah.
What about you can buy like, I don't know if I can use other brands, but like Reds cider?
That is a beer.
Is it a beer?
Yeah,
it's an ale, I guess, right?
That is a beer that with apple flavoring. And
Really?
it's interesting you ask about that because
Interesting.
I was at a local pub the other day and somebody, I was just sitting minding my own business like I always do when I'm having a beer. But somebody comes and says, hey, do you have cider? And they go, we have 2 ciders. We have a local one from Mountain West, and then we have Red's, apple. And I didn't say anything. It was hard not to say anything.
To be compared.
But Red's is a beer with apple flavoring.
I'm going to give you permission to jump all over people from now on.
Unless they're a sponsor of yours.
It's been a minute since I've had Reds, but I don't remember it being that beery.
I don't either.
Beery.
I mean, it's been a long time because once I found Mountain West, I'm done, man.
Yeah.
For real.
Back up. How long has Mountain West been around?
We started in November. It will be.
Well, you said 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. 3 years of.
What's funny is we were supposed to start in March of 15, and I came in January. And when you open a new business, you think, oh, we'll be open in 2 months, and it was a year after that.
It's so easy to be overly optimistic when you haven't, haven't really gotten started.
What were like some of the obstacles to get you going here to start?
There's originally when I came down like 3 times to do a little recon and scope things out. Originally, we Jeff and Jen picked out the building next to, is it Sapa?
Okay, yeah, down
which is now
about 800,
which is now Purgatory.
Okay,
Oh yeah, Purgatory.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm like, oh, this is a great facility. Big open space and a big backyard beer garden type thing. And then the city said, it's not zoned for that.
Yeah.
Even though there's I think a brewery across the street and down the street. So, but hard cider, nope.
Yeah. We need to actually take a quick break here to play a message from our sponsor. So hang tight and we'll be right back. We got some more questions for Jill. So hang tight. All right, guys. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by the Salt Lake Barber Company. Longtime listeners, I know you guys have heard us talk about them. I love them. Eric and Isaac have actually been on previous episodes of the podcast. And full disclosure, this is where I go to get my haircuts and beard trims. Isaac over there does an amazing job.
Every time you come home, you look so good.
You tell me that every time.
It's true.
And
He
so
does such a great job.
I want to go over every week. They are located at 10 East, 800 South, right on the corner of 8th and Main in the central 9th district of downtown Salt Lake City, kind of right across the street from the old Sears there. They offer haircuts. They offer beard trims. They offer straight razor shaves. They are truly a community barbershop. They focus on providing the best work environment possible and allowing barbers to always provide the highest quality experience while in the chair. I know a lot of you listening, you are familiar with the traditional walk-in barbershop. I was for the longest time. Salt Lake Barber Co., they offer guaranteed appointments. If you head on over to their website and book your appointment online, go to saltlakebarberco.com. You select your barber, you select the services that you need, and then it'll show you the available time slots, and you will be guaranteed an appointment. Again, saltlakebarberco.com is their website.
They even support local. Some of the products they carry are public coffee brewed daily. They even have a Ninja Turtles arcade game, and all of the proceeds go to charity.
And they got a ton of grooming products. So when I need some new beard oil, boom, I can just pick it up right there at the Salt Lake Barber Company.
It's perfect.
Again, their website is saltlakebarberco.com. And many thanks to the Salt Lake Barber Company for sponsoring this episode of I Am Salt Lake Podcast. This episode is also sponsored by Market Source Real Estate. If you're moving to Salt Lake City, hit up Market Source Real Estate. If you're moving outside of Salt Lake City, hit up Market Source Real Estate. If you are moving within Salt Lake City, contact Market Source Real Estate.
Yeah, our friends Monique and Jeremy Higginson of Market Source Real Estate have been specializing for the past 17 years in helping people buy and sell homes in Sugar House and the greater Salt Lake area.
With a background of flipping houses and owning almost 24 homes themselves, they know all the ins and outs of older homes.
If you're looking to sell your home, Market Source Real Estate specializes in helping sellers upgrade or repair their homes to increase the value and help make you more money.
If you're looking to buy an old home, they know what to look for, so you don't end up buying a money pit. Find their info at thinksaltlakecity.com or give them a call, 801-810-6773. Again, thinksaltlakecity.com or give them a call, 801-810-6773. And many, many thanks to Market Source Real Estate for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. All right, this episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Five Wives Vodka. You know, longtime listeners, you guys have heard us talk about them on the podcast. You've seen us post about them online.
I always have a bottle at home.
It's because we love them.
We really do.
Next time you hit up your local bar, say you're out with some buddies this weekend, ask for Five Wives Vodka. The next time you go to the state liquor store, ask for Five Wives Vodka. They actually have 3 different flavors. A lot of people don't know about them. You know, I only knew about the original flavor for the longest time, Chrissy.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if I just didn't look around on the shelves for the other 2 flavors, but they have 3 different flavors of Five Wives Vodka. They have the original flavor. This is made from Utah mountain spring water. It's 100% distilled corn spirit and gluten-free. Spring is hidden in beautiful Ogden Canyon. It's inaccessible by vehicle, so the water is actually being hiked out 5 gallons at a time.
And I know I've said it before, but I will say it again. Coming home after a long day of work, popping open a LaCroix and putting some Five Wives in there, perfect end to the day. Five Wives also has a flavor called Sinful. It's a delicious cinnamon-flavored vodka. And unlike other cinnamon products that give you a cinnamon candy taste, Sinful is like a morning cinnamon roll, and it only has 76 calories per ounce.
They also have the Five Wives Heavenly. This is a flavored vodka with a delicious vanilla taste. Heavenly's rich, buttery vanilla flavor comes through without coating your taste buds with sugar, which results in more vanilla and less calories. Head on over to their website, fivewivesvodka.com is where you can get drink recipes and find out about all the flavors, find out more information about them. And like I said, next time you hit up the bars, next time you go to the state liquor store, ask for Five Wives Vodka by name and pick up an extra bottle for your buddy next door because you know he's had a bad day in.
It makes a great gift.
And many thanks to Five Wives Vodka for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And we're back. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
You're ready to go? We're back.
Rolling.
Here's a question for you. We have a lot of listeners outside of Utah. Can you get your hard ciders outside of Utah?
No.
No, not at all.
Oh, no way. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, it's the state of Utah.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Wait. So the state of Utah is saying you can't sell outside of Utah?
Yeah, you know, like when I had the winery down in Washington, or up in Washington, I sent cases of wine pretty much all over the country. There are a few states, like Arizona had a pretty strict laws, and I think Georgia or somewhere else like that, where it was illegal to send wine to. And I think Utah probably was too.
Yeah.
But there's only a handful. I did it anyway. I mean, I'd like to think that the ATF has more important things to worry about. I mean, good God, there's a war going on.
Yeah. I hope they have more important
things. And if they want
things.
to pick on some little boutique winery in Washington State, then bring it on. I could use the press.
So how are like other, because I know some of the other local breweries and distilleries are shipping outside of Utah. So how are they doing?
Well, they probably have distributors.
Okay.
Where their product goes into liquor stores or retail outlets. And we will go that route down the road. But right now we're doing all we can to keep up with demand just in Utah.
But all over Utah. I mean, even down to St. George.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they don't drink in St. George, do they? I don't.
Oh, we have a few accounts
Nobody
in
in
St.
St.
George.
George.
Well, no,
drinks.
But tourists do.
I don't know if is there. I heard there's no. Wait, they can't dance and drink in the
Wait,
same bar.
is that? Are you messing with me?
No, that's a real law in St. George.
Really?
It's Footloose. It's Footloose. Remember the movie Footloose?
Remember it? I lived it.
No, I really heard this
Oh my
about
gosh,
St.
that-
George.
that is terrible.
There's no dancing and drinking in the same place.
Oh, that's so dumb.
Anyway, we're not eyeing.
But
St.
we're not in
George.
St. George, so we're fine.
Well, I think a listener needs to email you and give us the real
yeah,
scoop on
someone
that.
give us the scoop. I have a friend in St. George. I'll ask her.
I might want to go to St. George and visit.
Just for
don't
But I
dance
do
in the
know
street with a
there's
beer.
a liquor store there, and we are available there.
Okay, very cool. Now, the flavors. Let's run down the list of flavors.
First of all, we have our flagship. It's called Ruby, and it is just a blend of apples that is fermented in carbonated, and it's just a nice crisp. It's about 6.8% alcohol. Second release was 7 Mile. We wanted to have more of a green apple character and lower alcohol, and it comes in about 5%. It's one of my favorites because you can drink more of them. Then we came out with Cottonwood, which is infused with hops. So if you like a hoppy beer, this might be your thing. And what we're getting a lot of is people that are going to a gluten-free regiment, but they like hops. And so if they drank IPA, the Cottonwood would be great for them. Then we came out with Desolation, which is infused with prickly pear cactus, which I didn't know this until I moved to Utah, that prickly pear was a cactus button that's bright red and just explodes with like passion fruit. It's delicious.
See, and I thought it was actually a pear.
A lot of people think, I did too. A lot of people thought
I tried one last week and it was so good. And I was like, wow, this is pear flavored?
Well, I know for a fact that we got results back from a judging competition. We did real well. But one of the judges wrote on, really pronounced hints of pear. And he thought too, I'm sure if I explained to him, no, it's prickly pear. It's a cactus. It's kind of bitter,
That would, poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything in the future that you're that you want?
And then finally we have a barrel aged. It's Asian whiskey barrels, and it's not carbonated, and it's. I think it's a lot like a Chardonnay. I would enjoy it with anything that you would drink a Chardonnay with. It's real pleasant. It has mild whiskey tones, real dry.
And
what I love?
What is that one?
That's called Stillwater.
Stillwater.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what I love about the whole line of and I've only had 3 flavors though, so I can't say the whole lineup. But Mountain West Cider it's more of a dry. It's not sweet. It's not like a super sweet cider, and it's more for like a wine or
it's dry. It's drier than a BYU tailgate party.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, but and that's part by design.
Right, right.
I think the dryness really goes better with food. But also, if you get a sweet cider, and there's plenty out there, they're bigger commercial ciders. But if it's a sweet cider, it's really it's either has a ton of chemicals in it or nasties that prevent further fermentation, or it's been pasteurized, and that's fine. But we don't pasteurize or add extra sulfites or whatever to retard the fermentation.
So this is healthy stuff. I mean, this should be at Whole Foods.
I don't think I'm allowed to say it's healthy.
It's all natural.
but it is gluten free.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's great. I mean, obviously, and then I was drinking this stuff like no tomorrow before I decided to eliminate fruit out of my diet, right?
That keto diet?
That keto thing, right?
See, when you said that, I thought you were just drinking Keto's beer.
Oh, keto.
And I thought, that diet sounds perfect. He's lost, like 20 pounds.
Wait, there's a beer called Keto's beer?
Yeah, here in Salt Lake, there's a new brewery.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to look into that.
Talk about, is there anything behind the design? You guys have such incredible branding. Do you know anything about that?
Gorgeous.
Yeah, and at first, like the cider company that I used to have that I sold, it was more edgy. It was more like Mike's Hard Lemonade, and it was fun, and it was easy to target college students. And so when I came here and saw this branding, I was like, oh, it's a little more. And Ruby was first. I liked it. But then when we came out with 7 Mile and then Desolation and Cottonwood, and they're all next to each other, it was like a eureka.
It's classy.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. That was done by a local agency, Love Communications, and they hit it out of the park as far as the branding.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. What about if people want to, are you into home brewing at all?
After doing this for 10 hours a day, going home and doing
you probably want to have one more hobby, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll do little homebrew size specialty experimental batches here at work. But no, I don't want to go home and fire up the kettle and boil grain and do that. I have too many good friends that are brewers here and can make beer way better than I ever could.
Do you find yourself, like we've had chefs on the podcast, right?
Uh-huh.
And the last thing they want to do is go home and eat, pour a bowl of cereal. Do you find that you're like, gosh, I can't drink another hard cider?
I still like beer.
Or is that a tough question, Dan?
No,
I don't know. Do you ever get sick of it?
What's funny is back when I was in the wine industry, I would go to events where there'd be hundreds of wines that I could just pick any one I want. And I would always bring my own wines. And it was amazing how many winemakers just went to their wines and they weren't interested in tasting other wines.
Because they kind of knew it.
Yeah.
Huh.
The availability of different ciders here in Utah is very limited. And I've had them all. But like when Jen goes out of state, I always say, bring back a cider. And it's fun to sit around and try them. And, some of them we really like and some of them we don't.
Have any of them ever inspired you to kind of create a new line or a new flavor?
I'm kind of the guy that I like to do something that leads the pack and originality. But yeah, there's been some that I went, ooh, that's really good. It just, I think one that comes to mind had a little bit of hibiscus in it.
Oh.
And for the event here in town, the Brewstillery event, I don't know if you remember that. We did a special, I went down to the Tea Grotto on, where is that, 3rd and...
Sounds about right. Down 300 South there.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And there's actual tea sommeliers. And I talked to this tea expert and I said, we're doing the specialty cider for Brewstillery event. And I want to make a cider infused with one of your teas. And they turned me on to this tea that was just gorgeous.
Wow.
And it ended up winning the best, what they call it, the best of show or whatever. But doing experimental things like that, I love. Displaying a little creativity now and again.
Can I take you guys way off track and super gross you out?
Yes.
Because I just found out, I'm just warning you, I found out the other day that there's like a whole region, I don't know, where they make seagull tea. Do you know what that is? Or seagull wine.
Oh, no,
do you know what that is?
I could do you worse than that.
There's mouse wine too.
No, I could do you worse than that.
Okay, what's worse?
I don't know if I want to say. Let's just.
I'm kind of curious though.
It may involve some human waste.
Really?
In a wine?
Into a wine.
In a alcoholic beverage.
Can you buy that at the liquor store?
Interesting.
Not in Utah.
I was going to say, I'm on my way.
And we're talking some, third world country that does this.
I mean, they're desperate, right?
And it seems to me, I remember reading something about beetle dung wine or something like that. There's some weird thing.
I kind of look. I did a little bit of Googling after I found out about it, and I mean, they'll just take animals and ferment the animals.
Every culture has something really weird.
And then there's toilet wine.
There's prison wine.
Prison wine.
That's the affordable wine.
Do you know how to make prison wine?
Yeah. I would be your best friend in prison. I could easily do it.
Well, if we're going down, you're going to be my cellmate, right?
But the rough part about prison wine is you have to go probably, I'm guessing, 10 or so hours without using the bathroom in your cell.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Well, shoot, let's not commit any crimes. Then.
Otherwise, you have to flush your wine.
I was just getting in there for the wine, But when you're not making all these beverages, Joel, what are some of your other hobbies and interests? What are some other things you enjoy doing?
I'm still in the honeymoon phase of Utah, so taking weekend excursions and drives. I just in the last few weeks I've kind of gotten out there a little bit and explored a little.
Do you go
more.
up into the mountains? You hiker or mountain biker?
A hiker. I have this argument with my friends. Is like hiking is just walking. It really is
glorified walking.
Yeah, don't make it sound all badass and call it hiking.
Well, no, hiking though. Okay, walking is like if you're going to walk to the store. Like say you were to walk to the gateway, but hiking is like if you're going to go in the mountains and you hit a trail. There's a trail that's saying 3 miles to Donut Falls or whatever. That Donut Falls is like the only hiking trail.
So what
I
makes
know.
that hiking and not walking?
Well, it's walking, but you're hiking. I don't know, Joel. Sorry, God.
Because some of them say, well, hiking, you go up and down hills, and it's like, well, you can hike on the beach, can't you? And that's flat.
Yeah.
When you go out to the bar, what's your go-to drink?
If it's one of those nights, I like a dirty martini.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you been to what's that bar? There's a martini bar, the Red Door.
Yes, the magical weekend that I told you, where everybody was on their best behavior, and there's events, and even the homeless people were singing.
They were somehow really on par.
It was incredible. Yeah, they were singing like just old show
in
tunes.
Chorus.
Yeah. But I visited that place that particular weekend.
They got great martinis.
Yeah.
There. I'm not a martini guy, but I remember going there. I'm like, man, they got a lot. Have you been there, Chrissy?
You know what? I have never been there, and people talk about it. I need to go.
Going back to the whole Utah law thing, a martini which I'm a gin martini guy. When they say, would you like vodka or gin? I was like, a martini's gin. The laws here, you can only have an ounce of the gin, and then I think the ratio is a half ounce of vermouth, shaken. I like them a little dirty. But then when they hand you that glass, it looks so small because it's only an ounce and a half a cocktail. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of bartenders will put a little extra vermouth or, leave the melted ice in there a little bit longer so that they can present to you a larger looking cocktail. And I would rather have a good, perfect martini than a larger looking cocktail. And so that was frustrating. There's a few restaurants.
It kind of ruins the flavor?
Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But there's a few places around town that make outstanding cocktails, and that's because they don't try to make it look big.
Do you care to mention what they are? Is that
one that comes to mind is they're cocktail craftsmen, and I would say the Rest downstairs of the bodega.
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
the Rest.
yes, yeah.
Where you go in there and I go, okay, these guys are professionals. They're craftsmen.
Yeah.
That one comes to mind. There's
Bar
plenty.
X is, at least
Bar X
from my experience there. I'm curious now that you brought that up. I know we're kind of backtrack a little bit, but when you first came here, I mean, the liquor laws, was it kind of weird? Like,
it's
you're
still
like,
weird.
You're like, wait a minute, I can only have one shot in front of me, or I can't have a double shot, or even some of the drinks. See, and I don't know, because I didn't start drinking until I lived in Utah. Even though I grew up in California, Utah is where I started drinking, so it's all normal to me.
Right. Me too. I never drank till I came to Utah, but there are some states that are kind of similar, like
Utah will make you drink.
Yeah, yeah. But what were some of the laws that were like weird, or that you stand out to you?
On my phone, I keep around what a shot of Jim Beam looks like in Oregon and Washington compared to what it looks like here in Utah. So I think you can't have a double Bloody Mary. So it comes in a big pint glass, your double Mary, but it's only a shot, and so. It ruins the craft of a good tasting cocktail, I think, those laws. The alcohol on Sunday is
like the closed stores?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a liquor store and all that.
And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the air here isn't all that great.
Really?
No,
Weird.
seriously, I'll show you.
I didn't know.
But, but I'm thinking they're making us go to two different stores, the grocery store and the liquor store. Why not consolidate them?
Yeah.
I like your style there.
I'm so with you.
Or why not the Trader Joe's? How nice would that be if the Trader Joe's had some wine like they do in some of the other states? But
maybe someday.
Let's talk Salt Lake City. If somebody's visiting Salt Lake City, say this weekend, Joel, what would you tell them to do or check out?
Well, I know you don't like the Saturday market very much.
The farmer's market.
Or the farmer's market.
I hate the worst.
Yeah. So I tell them to stay away from there. No, going back to my magical weekend the first time, I got up Saturday morning and I was going to go for a run, and I went, what in the hell is going on here? And it is a charming little market. And, in Seattle, we had Pike Place Market, and Portland has a really eccentric Saturday market. So it was nice to see that Salt Lake has their version too.
Every time we're at the market, I meet at least one person from out of state. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that they find it, because I meet a lot of new friends and like cool people. It seems to be a really great place to kind of get to know people in Salt Lake. I have 10 of my best friends coming into town in a few weeks for the University of Washington, University of Utah football game.
They're flying in just for that?
Flying in just for that. Good God. It's going to be like we're, kids again. But that's, it's going to be one of those times where they say, what should we do? And
you're going to have a tailgate party in the whole 9 yards, or what?
Well, the kickoff is at 8:00.
In the morning?
No, at night.
Okay.
And so how are these guys going to maintain that long?
To even get to 8:00?
Yeah. But if my parents come into town, I drive them up to Park City.
Sure.
And
sure.
That's the closest thing to any other state that I can find. I like downtown Salt Lake, especially on Sunday when you can park.
You feel like you own the whole town, the whole city.
You could park anywhere you want.
Parking is kind of tough in Salt Lake,
What?
Is it tougher than Seattle?
Are you being for real?
Well, people say, what are the things you like about Salt Lake? And I always compare them to the things I don't like about Portland and Seattle, and that is traffic, litter, and homeless people. Salt Lake is a clean
And you think there's more homeless people up that way than in Salt Lake City? Oh, my goodness.
Everybody goes, the homeless problem in Salt Lake, it's nothing compared to Portland.
Really?
Nothing.
Really?
Well, Portland is getting bad, though, with like the teenagers, early 20s or something like that. I've been seeing like on news and documentaries.
Damn kids.
Millennials?
Yeah.
Millennials.
And then heroin is a big epidemic up there in Portland.
But I'm sure it is everywhere.
Here too, probably.
But Portland's used to be a beautiful city, and it still is, but
it's kind of overrun.
This little patch of lawn in front of Mountain West Cider right here, if that was in Portland, there'd be tents on it. And plus, the weather in Portland is really mild, so you could live there year-round.
Yeah, why do homeless people live here? This is the worst.
I know, if you're going to be homeless, go to San Diego.
I know.
I've always wondered
Go
that.
somewhere really, really comfortable.
Hop on I-15 South, go right down to Vegas for starters, then head on into L.A.
You're good to go.
What would you change about Salt Lake, though? If you could change something, Joel, what would you like to change?
The air quality gets old.
Yeah.
And this, I don't know if anybody's mentioned this. It's a pet peeve, and it makes me road rage every day. But the traffic lights here aren't synchronized. So if you're,
most of them aren't.
No, it drives me nuts. The light turns green, and you think, okay, it's going to stay green for another 20 blocks, but it's like it turns red every time you come to the next block.
I never even thought about that.
And I know there's algorithms to where if you're on State Street, you can go all the way down State Street and it just turns green every time you come to a new block. That it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I could.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Favorite local eating spots? You got a couple, I'm sure, Joel.
I do. Give me a situation.
Your buddies this weekend. Where are you going to take them this weekend? The buddies that are coming in for the game.
Well, they're more divey. They're a little more lowbrow.
Okay, so you're going on a date with a
real pretty lady.
I would take my smoking hot gal to. There's a few places in Salt Lake and here's how I look at restaurants where this restaurant would work in any city. Whether it's Portland or San Francisco or Seattle, this restaurant has their stuff together and would be successful anywhere. And I think Manoli's is right up there.
I never heard of that place. Where's it at?
It's right by the Tea Grotto.
Is it?
Across this kitty corner.
Okay.
I think Tin Angel is unique
food.
and fun. Yeah. I think the Bayou is kind of...
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
They got a lot of good beers on tap there. I mean,
I like that.
Huge amounts of beer.
And again, I think the rest is kind of interesting. I like the way they change their menus occasionally. But coming from, I don't want to be that guy that's like, well, I moved here from Seattle and Portland. And we had restaurant. It's Salt Lake's small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Well, they say Salt Lake City's kind of mimicking Portland, right? That's what people say. It's like we're kind of the next.
I would draw the comparison when I lived in Portland in the early 90s to Salt Lake is kind of that now.
Okay.
We'll get there. We're
don't want to be there.
Beginning adolescence. We don't want to be there.
Salt Lake's the size of like Eugene, Oregon. Salt Lake's smaller than people think.
Yeah, but I kind of like it.
When we went out to Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, I'm like, okay, now this is a city.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'm a city guy, man.
When we went to Chicago and we went to Portland.
Yeah.
Or not Portland. We've been saying Portland too much. Philly.
Yeah.
And I was, oh man, I do love them. But there's something about Salt Lake that is so neat. I mean,
I agree.
You feel like very at home.
All my friends that come to visit Salt Lake for the first time, when I take them downtown, they're amazed at how many of our bartenders are pierced and tatted, and they look like a Seattle bartender.
Yeah.
So downtown Salt Lake is actually very liberal, and it's got a cool vibe.
It is.
That people,
not a lot of people know.
People in the rest of the country have no idea how cool downtown Salt Lake is.
Yeah, but now they will. Thanks.
How can listeners of the show, as we kind of wrap this up here, Joel, how can listeners of the show find out more about Mountain West Hard Cider or get in touch with you?
MountainWestCider.com is the best way. And from there, you can inquire about events and different things we have going on throughout the year, new releases. We are on Twitter. We are on
Facebook,
and that whole social media. I mean, it's just a fad. It's not going to be around forever. It's going to go away.
You think so?
Another month or so. It's good. We're going to go back to
Just another month.
Actually, before we completely close out, do you want to talk about like the event garden thing?
Oh, yeah.
At all? Because you have a lot of events.
Well, it's
here.
cool. We have the coolest neighbors in the world. It's Red Rock Brewery.
Yeah.
And it's not, a lot of people go, oh, yeah, I eat there all the time. This is the actual brewery where the beer's made. It's not the pub downtown. The relationship we have with Red Rock is just incredible. Like, where I can go over there and stand around and just have a cup of coffee with those guys or borrow anything, and they come over and do the same. But anyway, we have this big outdoor event space here at Mountain West, and it's called The Garden, and it's a full bar, and we feature Mountain West Cider, and we feature Red Rock beers. We usually have a guest tap of another local brewery, and usually a guest distillery. I think last week we had Dented Brick. No, I'm sorry, Outlaw. Before that, we had Five Wives. You ever have Five Wives?
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I've heard of it. Yeah,
Once, I think.
those are really nice products. But so we have outdoor seating for, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300.
Beautiful spot.
Yeah, it
really is.
And I honestly think it's the coolest place in Salt Lake to day drink.
And people, you can actually rent it too, right? Like for weddings
we do have events, but we're open a few more weeks on the weekends this year.
The winter's around the corner,
There's
man.
always, it is. There's always we always have live bands, and we always have a food truck or two.
What are the hours that it's open? Hours and days?
11-ish on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 11-ish till 10.
Oh, for the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so the garden is always open on the weekends.
Yeah.
Then really? Okay.
Yeah.
I found my new favorite weekend activity.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else you want to ask him, Chrissy, before we wrap this up?
Yeah. If you were to give our listeners one piece of life advice, what would it be?
Oh, that's heavy.
I know, right?
A few years ago when my life wasn't going all that well, one of my best friends told me, he said, ask the universe for what you want and be specific. So, just visualize yourself doing what you want to do, and I think it'll work out. And my other one is, don't be a dick.
That's my favorite.
I've had a heck of a conversation. Thank you so much, Joel, for
it's been a pleasure.
letting us do this. And thank you for letting us record, some podcast episodes here at Mountain West Hard Cider. Very, very generous. When you reached out to me, I was like, man, this is what community is all about.
It's really fun. I feel like we're not just going to a spot in a whole, away from everything. We get to actually interact with you guys.
I know, and you can move around.
Fun. Yeah.
No, I think this spot fits you guys perfectly.
Well,
I love it.
Thank you. And I always tell people, let's catch up down the road. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to do another podcast down the road with you, Joel. So thank you.
Many thanks again to Joel Goodwillie for joining us on this episode of the podcast and sharing his story. You can head on over to our website, iamsaltlake.com/345 for all the links for you to get in touch with him. Go reach out to Joel and let him know that you heard him on this podcast.
All right, guys, this is the first of the month. Longtime listeners, you know what that means. This is the time that we take a step back. We read down the list of all of our awesome Patreon supporters. These are everybody that is a current Patreon supporter. And if you're unfamiliar what Patreon is, it's like an ongoing Kickstarter. This is a perfect way for you to support this podcast for as little as $1. I'm serious. If each one of you was to donate $1 a month through our Patreon, we could do a lot of really cool things with this podcast. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, head on over to patreon.com/IamSaltLake. That's spelled Patreon.com. And go check it out. We got some cool rewards. I'm going to read down this list, though. We have some awesome Patreon supporters. Let's start off with John Miller and Ryan Prince, two Patreon supporters that have been around for a long time. Thanks so much, guys. We have the Ute Daddy Lawn Process, Thelma Rother, C. Elizabeth McIntyre, 3 Irons SLC, Nicole Davison, Alex Santee, Riley Padilla, Zach Shutt, Brandon Hill from over at Mountain Standard Time Marketing, Will Dugdale, Jared Aguilar, Brittany Hemingway, Jeff Hadfield, Michael Beck, Eric Tamaro from over at Mediocre Show, Jeff Hatt, John and Nikki, our friends over in New Zealand, Sana, TW, Alan Martindale, Michelle Stevens-Williams, Dirt in Your Skirt podcast, Christopher Heiser, and Jay Chambers. That is a list, Chrissy.
I know. I love those people.
It's amazing. I had this idea of a podcast. Speaking of that, we didn't even mention that it was a 6-year anniversary here a week ago.
Oh, yeah.
And
6 years.
6 years of doing this podcast. And now we have some amazing Patreon supporters. We have some amazing sponsors. This is a community-driven podcast.
And I think that's my favorite thing about it is just the community coming together and being there for each other and supporting each other.
Well, like we even mentioned how we're recording at Mountain West Hard Cider today. This is great that they're donating their conference room for us to be able to record into. So
it's so great. And many thanks again to our sponsors for this episode, Five Wives Vodka, the Salt Lake Barber Company, and Market Source Real Estate. If you'd like to get more information about how to become a sponsor, get in touch with us. You can email us at hello@iamsaltlake.com.
All right, guys, you have a great week. Try to get out and enjoy the city. Support local, and we're going to see you on the next episode.
And good night, Grammy.